All right. Now that it's 1:05 here, we're going to go ahead and get started here. Thank you guys first and foremost for everyone joining here today. We're really excited to have Training the Street on with us to just talk a little bit more about just investing in the future here, investing for tomorrow, and talk a little bit more about just from the corporate side of things, just what are the expectations here that a lot of corporate firms are looking for in students after they graduate from their college or university. And so we'll have Train the Street kind of talk a little bit more about that. Just to kind of get started here. There is just a few notes here before we get started. Just number one, if you guys have any questions and stuff, feel free to type it in our chat. We'll be answering questions at the end here. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to just throw it in there, and we'll be answering all those questions at the end of the webinar here. The other things to note is that there's going to be some really cool things that we'll be talking about, and even after the webinar, we'll be sending out some follow-up emails that will get you guys access to some really cool content that you'll guys get free access to. So both ExPrep Train the Street will kind of give you guys some more info about that towards the latter part of the webinar, but just want to let you guys know that there's going to be some really cool pieces of content that you guys will be able to access for free afterwards. And so again, really excited to have you guys all here. Just to kind of get us started here, my name is Brandon Ang. I'm the founder of ExPrep. What we are is a spreadsheet automation platform. So we work with a lot of higher education and more recently, a lot of the corporate and financial institution side. And so what we do is essentially you can take any of your own custom content in Excel. So if you have any assignments, any projects, and exams that you guys create inside of Excel, you're able to utilize our platform to automate all of the grading and reporting. And so Ross and Scott will talk a little bit more about too how Training the Street goes ahead and utilizes ExPrep for some of their content so that they can deliver that to all of their clients all over the world. And so they'll talk a little bit more about that down the road here. But just to kind of do a little bit of intros here, Scott, why don't you just tell us a little bit more about yourself and Training the Street?
Great. Thank you, Brandon. My name is Scott Roston. I'm the CEO and founder of Training the Streets. We are a education company that specializes in teaching valuation, corporate finance, accounting, capital markets type skills. So Excel is obviously integral to what we do. And I'm sure we'll get into some deeper around our relationships. I'm based in the New York City area, as is Ross. And I'm also an adjunct professor of the practice at UNC Chapel Hill's Business School, Keenan Flagler, where I teach a investment banking and a financial modeling course in their spring mod. Ross?
Great. I'll jump in, with my bio. Hi, everyone. My name is Ross Riley. I've been with Training the Street for 17, going on 18 years, actually, I believe, Scott, this year. I'm director of our data analytics practice, which encompasses a lot of what we do now with data in terms of Excel, Power BI, Python, all sorts of different ways in which we analyze data. I do a lot of work with Brandon on ExPrep and the way in which we use it in our practice. I originally started off as an M&A banker, much like Scott actually did, and then transitioned into private equity, and then joined up with Training the Street and became a valuation modeling instructor, and now also teach accounting and Excel.
Awesome. And so what we're going to do is we'll start off the conversation by just talking a little bit more about the industry, a lot gearing towards, I guess, the corporate and finance world. We'll start there, and then we'll kind of move into conversations more about how we can better prepare students for the workplace today. And then after that, I know Ross is going to go ahead and share his screen, and he's going to actually show a demo of just some of the stuff that Training the Street does in the corporate world and how they utilize ExPrep with that. And so what's going to be really cool about that too is that content too will be available for all of you guys, for you guys to access if you guys would like after the webinar. And so we'll be sending you guys follow-up emails afterwards where you'll be able to access, we'll be able to give you a link and information about accessing that content. So kind of getting us started here, just to talk a little bit more about the finance industry today and just about training the street a little bit more. So I know, Scott, you guys, you guys are very well known. Training the street, really well known for working in the the financial institutions with a lot of analysts, with a lot of you doing evaluations, corporate finance, a lot of those types of areas. And I know that's where Training the Street's really well known for. What else do you guys do? What other industries do you guys typically cover with Training the Street?
Yeah. So look, historically, our core clients are just that, investment banks, financial services, but also global markets professionals at everything from, leading global financial institutions like UBS and Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, to advisory firms like Lazard, Evercore, Moelis, Rothschild. But we also do a lot with other industries and sectors. Private equity firms utilize a lot of our skills, and other alternative asset managers. So I think, Blackstone, BlackRock, Fidelity in more traditional asset management, and sovereign wealth funds, some of the big ones, especially in the Middle East and Asia Pacific rim, but also consulting firms. And Ross actually has a lot of experience work with our consulting clients on the data analytics side, as they think about financial modeling. So Deloitte Consulting is one of our largest clients, and partnering with us. But we also do it at corporations, Netflix and PepsiCo, just two names. And we've also done an Excel class at Microsoft that I love telling people, which is kind of funny and ironic, but just shows how we're coming at it from a different angle, which we'll get into a little bit later. But then also law firms, and mostly large corporate, and also the litigation practices at Debevoise and Skadden Arps. But then the final piece, which I think is a good bridge to this audience, is academic institutions. We partner with a lot of business schools, a lot of undergrad institutions. Again, I'm not only a professor in the finance department at UNC Chapel Hill, but we also partner with them with their career development office to help prepare students for interviews and internships, which is what we do with many academic institutions around the world.
Awesome. So you guys go in. I know you guys do a lot of these live trainings. You'll do where you kind of go into some type of like boot camp style couple-day trainings with these corporate firms or at a lot of these academic institutions. And I know you guys also do a lot of different, especially with COVID hitting us, you guys do a lot more now of some virtual trainings as well. So when you guys are doing these types of trainings, like what type of content typically do you find that most of your clientele are looking for? Like what type of content do you guys typically train on?
Yeah, and that's a great question, Brandon. So this is the way we actually try to position ourselves with our clients. It's not the audience we're teaching to, it's more of what are our competencies. So we teach in accounting. You think financial statement analysis is our first pillar. Our second pillar is corporate valuation. So think public comparables, acquisition comparables, DCF would fall into that area. Again, Ross and I are both former M&A practitioners, so this is very near and dear to our heart. Financial modeling, which would encompass the Excel efficiencies, but making forecasts in there, and capital markets. So just understanding how the capital markets world, those are four main pillars. But then Ross is the head of our data analytics practice. That's another area which includes from VBA and Python, and so more programming to working with Copilot and how do we use data analytics, also using Excel in a different way. So what we really like to do is partner with our clients on their technical needs for what is going to meet their audience. So that could be a 2-hour workshop, or it could be a 3-week boot camp. And it can be for interns, it could be for existing hires, but mostly it's the interns, the summer interns in the financial services, which are usually a 2-3 day training for them, or a 2-3 week is more of the analysts coming right out of undergrad, or the associates coming out of business school as part of their graduate new hire program.
Awesome. Yeah. So let's just say, you're whether they're in the financial or data analytics side or the accounting side, are there any general skill sets that typically these companies are like really looking for in some of these, like in these young professionals, like when they're going ahead and when you guys are coming in and doing some type of training, if they're maybe just new employed, they're just getting onboarded, or they're fresh new employees at the firm, is there any like specific skills that typically these companies are seeking?
Yeah, but as a broad, everybody's a little different, but as a general baseline, it's accounting, corporate valuation, financial modeling, and then other, which would typically be some capital markets for certain people, maybe more an LBO with a different group, a different lens on one of those before. But a typical typical corporate program would be like 2 or 3 days of accounting, 10 days of valuation modeling with a couple of days of capital markets. So call it a 3-week program covering those main topical areas. And Excel is woven in and out of pretty much everything that we do for that, the practical hands-on application of those analyses.
Yeah, I mean, given that we revolve our company around Excel, we definitely hear that from a lot of universities, academic institutions a lot, where we've been hearing, oh, Excel, they get feedback from a lot of the corporate institutions saying, hey, your students need to get better in Excel, or we need to make sure that your Excel skills are top notch before coming in, because that's a lot of what these corporate firms are typically looking for. So I know that we kind of hear that from a lot of universities that we work with regarding with Excel and those types of skill sets. So have you noticed, so I'm curious, so recently, right? I mean, you had the launch of ChatGPT, you had all these crazy, like AI's become like this big boom. You're kind of seeing a lot of people trying to, it's really impacting a lot of different industries, including the corporate world as well as academic institutions. I know a lot of professors here have had either concerns, or either they're kind of all in on the AI side, or they're kind of really scared and kind of nervous on like how that's going to impact their industry. Have you guys seen or noticed any shift, like in terms of either employee skill sets that maybe these corporate firms are starting to look for now that AI is kind of getting introduced, and now now that's kind of being like a big buzzword around now these days?
Yeah, I guess I'll jump in here since this kind of falls within my world. Definitely AI has been at the forefront of a lot of queries we've gotten probably in the last 6 to 9 months, really since kind of the growth. And you think about even ChatGPT and the exponential rocket growth last year, how far it's come. And now, as Scott mentioned, Copilot now within Microsoft Office products, we're definitely getting a lot of inbound inquiries, and we've worked a lot to create some content around that, because we find that most of our clients are really at that point where they know that people are out there using it. They know here that there's a lot of tools there. So what are the risks versus the benefits of doing it? How do we make sure that people are using it responsibly? How do we know kind of what are the pitfalls that they need to be aware of? And of course, how exactly can they use this to really enhance their productivity, right? That's really what's kind of key, is saying, how can we kind of help people to figure it out? And I got to be honest, most of the training and most of the inbound inquiries we have so far is that people get access to the tools, but there's a subset that know exactly what to do and love them, and there's a vast majority that just doesn't quite yet understand what is possible with them and how exactly they can actually get the most out of them, whether it's ChatGPT or Copilot or anything else. And so there's definitely a lot of educational opportunities around just helping people figure out what it is that these tools do well and how it's going to fit in with their everyday productivity work.
And the one thing I will add is that some large institutions still have that data privacy concerns about introducing a new tool that goes outside their firewall. And that's, now some are embracing it, and others are kind of still trying to evaluate that of this from a lack of a better term, from a safety standpoint. I know that safety is not the right word, but just to understand the safety of information. But that goes back to Ross's point about using it properly. If you're uploading something to ChatGPT, you should assume then the world has it, or at least ChatGPT has it. So obviously you don't want to put client-sensitive confidential data to help for those analysis.
Well, yeah, and so I guess digging a little bit deeper into that here, I know that with AI changing the games, technology is obviously continued to just really just blow up a lot more. I mean, over these next 5 years, you guys anticipate or see that like there's any like changes in terms of skill sets or things that expectations where students will need to know certain things coming into being hired to some of these like leading institutions?
That's a good, interesting question. Like, obviously, we don't know what the future is going to hold. I do think some familiarity with, if you rewind 5, 10 years ago, Ross, I'm thinking out loud here for a second of like everybody's like having coding experience was going to be important. Now, with the launch of AI tools, that becomes less relevant unless you're going to be an actual programmer, kind of in a weird, ironic twist. But I think familiarity with that, like in my UNC class, I encourage my students, you may use ChatGPT if you want, to help you with your research and get you started, but you need to do your own work. And luckily, the exercise I'm asking them to do, the ChatGPT can't do yet. So, but it can help them with a SWOT analysis or company research or, or parsing an earnings call. Fine. And I want them to experiment. But let me reframe, Brandon. But I think look, universities and the professors out there do a fantastic job of teaching students like the foundation, how to learn, how understand this theory, this concept, and how to think, how to analyze. And that is not going to change. Corporations want to hire people who can think, right? And who can problem solve and who can communicate and who can collaborate. So, and I think one thing that's important that we're seeing a shift over, and it's a slow shift, is that look, like taking a typical investment banking new hire analyst program, it's roughly speaking about half business, finance, accounting majors and a half other liberal arts, history, political science, scientists, engineers, but people who are not accounting and finance majors. And they want that diversity of thought and for a way to think about it. But if they really want are people who can work in a team and who can solve a problem. And a lot of the corporate, client projects they work on, there's no right answer. It's incomplete information. There's a lot of nuance. And so it is not formulaic and just repeat this formula and you'll come to the right answer. They need to think through it a little bit more. So I think giving the universities, preparing students more for that world of uncertainty and a little bit more of like, hey, have an opinion, defend your opinion, and be able to communicate your opinion is going to be a valuable tool for them to have.
Yeah, that's good. I think so now, Scott, I know that you are not only, not only did you start training the street and doing this, so you're very familiar with the corporate world side, but as you mentioned earlier, you're also a professor at UNC Chapel Hill. And so, well, first off, sorry about UNC's loss in the March Madness. I didn't want to bring that up, but I had them going pretty far and you destroyed my bracket. It was already destroyed, but I digress there. But so you have both experiences. You kind of can now train. You've kind of trained in the corporate world there, but you've also helped prepare a lot of these students for their future careers, right, while they're still in academia. And so tell me a little bit about, because I know you're even teaching this, this upcoming term here. Tell me a little bit about how are you personally like prepping your students for in the classroom for the workplace, because I know that I think I'm not sure if it's valuation or some type of banking side that you're teaching. Could you just chat a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's an investment banking course. And I will say, just on the basketball topic, this is a red shirt I'm wearing in honor of NC State Wolfpack. Not because I'm an NC State fan. I'm a Tar Heel fan. And I grew up a Tar Heel fan in North Carolina. I'm just very disappointed. But having NC State beat Duke that was awesome. So I was very happy about that. So I'm pulling for NC State just because it's fun. So I am wearing red in honor of NC State this weekend. But anyway, the main course I teach at UNC is an investment banking course, and it's both an undergrad and an MBA dual class between them. All of the students have a job in investment banking or investment banking adjacent, private equity, global markets, corporate banking, something very close to that. So that course effectively gives them a boot camp on the core training that we would do at an investment banking new hire program. So they're going to get way more than they would have so the intern training they're going to see in the first week of their internship is going to be a review, which means on their first staffing, they're going to be at a far higher level. So by the end of the summer, because remember the internships at the banks is effectively a 10-week interview for both parties. The students are interviewing the bank and the bank's interviewing the student. So if you can demonstrate with your early staffings in that summer strong technical skills, you can hopefully stand out. And what UNC has seen is that the retentions and the ask-back rates and their offer rates have really gone up in the last 22 years since then. They've been doing this. I've been teaching there since 2002. They view this as a strategic advantage and a coursework for them. So it's basically an investment banking class focusing on the technical skills that a junior banker is going to expect to know so that they can hit the ground running that much faster and stand out from the crowd.
Cool. Yeah. So kind of drilling into that a little bit more now, kind of switching gears, talking a little bit more about how we can better prepare students, for the workplace. Is there any specific skills that that there should be more of an emphasis on in regards to preparing for the corporate world?
Yeah, I mean, look, as I said before a little while ago, those collaborations, teamwork, and those type of skills, I would strongly encourage people to continue to do that. Having them do group projects that don't have that have a wide variety of answers, right? It's not necessarily the conclusion they come to is most important. It's how they defend and justify and communicate their inclusion that's going to be a better skill set. So that I think is really what's going to be important, so that they understand that there's a lot of shades of gray, there's a lot of nuance. You're dealing with a lot of imperfect information at times, and you're also dealing with a lot of deadlines. So we in our Training the Street programs will set deadlines, and I also replicate this in my course at Chapel Hill, where I'm like, if you don't turn it in by 3:30 to Canvas, it's late. And so if Canvas says it's late, it's late. And every year students complain about that. I'm like, look, if the client said we're meeting at 3:30, you should be there at 3:15. If you're not early, you're late. And so, but trying to and propose that type of mentality, I think is a little bit tricky, because it's not a perfect world. You don't have you have imperfect information. So how do we deal with, all right, we have this bit of information, but we don't have that. How can we draw reasonable conclusions? How can we then make a recommendation to the client about a corporate transaction or a capital raise or whatever the case may be?
Cool. Yeah, and so there was as we've been getting more questions in, there was one that I actually kind of lined up with one of the questions I had, and I have to ask this because we're an Excel based company. So would you say Excel still a big one of the heaviest skill sets that a lot of companies are still looking for today, in terms of just something that would maybe create a competitive edge among other students? Or where do you kind of see Excel as part of a skill set in the line of what companies are looking for in the corporate world?
Yeah, and I guess I'll jump in here because I answered Katie's question there in the chat, and it was a great question. It definitely still is the predominant request we get from clients. I think because it's a tool that's been around for decades, people understand it. I think they're starting to see more of the limitations of what it can and can't do effectively and efficiently relative to the large data that we're now kind of gathering from a lot of our different systems. But because we deliver a lot of work to clients, people understand Excel, it is still going to be the predominant tool that we use, not just in financial analysis either. It's really kind of used in a variety of different ways that people just need to get comfortable with it. They just need to get comfortable with the idea that, my wife, who's in the restaurant business, she looks at Excel spreadsheets for employees and contact lists and setting out recipes and looking at costing of items. And so, small business, entrepreneurs, even just everyday use, people to get used to using Excel. And that's really where we kind of focus a lot, is trying to help people use it as a more efficient way, help them kind of make more effective and better spreadsheets, and really try to help them kind of get up that learning curve about how to use it in a great way to analyze data. Now, I would say on top of that, we're definitely seeing an uptick in terms of other types of data analysis tools, like Python is definitely becoming more popular. Power BI, which really launched only less than 10 years ago, has become incredibly popular. Tableau, of course, before that as well, has always been a great data visualization. But I'd say Excel is still kind of the big dog in this world, and will probably maintain that position just because of its kind of long-standing legacy.
So Ross, you being the data analytics guy here, so in terms of Excel skills specifically, like, is there any specific Excel skill sets that you're like, these students need to make sure they know these specific Excel skill sets when they're kind of coming out of college? Any specific skills that kind of come to your that come to mind?
It's a great question, and I would say that too often people feel like they need to get one of those Excel Bibles and try to read all 800 pages of what they write there. And honestly, you're never going to use all of that. There's just so much that it can do. There's great use cases in a wide variety of places, from statistical analysis and visualizations, whatever. I think people just need to start with the idea of just getting comfortable with it, getting comfortable with how to use it, how to lay out spreadsheets, what are some of the basic functionalities, and really where we actually find the biggest uptick, where people walk away and say, gosh, that was the most useful thing I learned, is in some of the most basic functionalities of navigating, moving through spreadsheets, copying and pasting stuff, little things we kind of take for granted that people know how to do, but really just getting better at it and realizing there's a lot of options there. And so really, I think it's just getting students exposure to that and getting them the skills to at least kind of use spreadsheets, even outside of kind of finance or accounting, but just general kind of everyday practice, because really they're going to find them to be useful in a wide variety of ways.
Cool. Yeah, I'm, as you guys know, I'm an Excel nerd. I mean, that's why I started this type of company. So I'm always curious about just the other side of what typically you guys see in terms of like some of the most, important Excel skill sets and things like that. Now that Excel has introduced things like Lambda, and that's kind of been growing now, and just trying to, I mean, they just introduced Copilot and chat, kind of mixing that in with Chat GPT side. So I have one last question for you guys before Ross goes ahead and just starts out the demo here. And so one of the things I know, a lot of these a lot of these attendees right now, they're professors, a lot of them are professors, and that is not generally, I guess we would call it like an Ivy League school, right? Because I hear in terms of rumors that a lot of these big corporate financial institutions are always like looking for a lot of these like Ivy League schools and students and recruiting out of there. My question is, like, for professors that are teaching at great universities that just don't have these, like, I guess, quote unquote Ivy League names, right? Like, what would you recommend for them to help create more exposure to their students to a lot of these big corporate financial institutions or just general corporate companies in general? Like, is there anything that you guys would recommend that universities start thinking about or start focusing on that would help create more exposure for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. To two thoughts. First, I think everyone should understand, and this is, from the professors to career services and the alumni, just need to understand that the internship recruiting process is by and large stage one of the full-time recruiting process, especially for financial institutions. And to put that in perspective, banks this winter, so call it February, early March, just gave out their internship offers for the summer of 2025. Okay, so we're talking 16 months from now, June 2025, for students who are going to graduate in spring of 2026. So they're interviewing sophomores for an internship between their junior and senior year, and hoping to have most, if not all of them, come as full-time employees when they graduate. So that acceleration of the timeline, I think, is extremely important, because you've got to get your first and second years prepared. And they're going to have to when they get their shot, they need to be prepared for that. So, which brings me to my second point. Having a broad partnership is critically important. Look, the professors do a very important role with this, from their academic support to mentoring to exposure to networking, what have you. The career services and the alumni are going to do extremely important points too of the networking aspect and navigating through the system. Your older students are having the juniors and seniors who've gone through the process, talking to the second years, talking to the first year MBAs, and then bringing in, this is where Training Street is partnering with academic institutions. We can help put together programs that are interview prep focused, that are corporate valuation topics and financial modeling topics and Excel workshops or what have you, but we can bring it in a, for lack of a better term, just-in-time manner on a boot camp workshop approach that might not fit in the core curriculum because they're first year, second year students. So that's where we like to partner with the professors, partner with the dean's office, partner with career resources about how can we serve and leverage together. There's a lot of professors at schools around that use our workshops as a prerequisite for their higher level financial modeling and Excel-based courses, because they know if they've gone through our financial modeling workshop, they've got these core skills that we love that. And that's exactly where we want to help how can we help? We can do some of let us do the building blocks, or if we know that they're coming from a different point, then how can we accelerate and bring it sooner? So I think those are two key things to realize. The timeline's accelerated and a broad partnership is needed. One person can't do it on their own.
That's really interesting that they're already looking like, over a year ahead for the next group or next set of students. That's really insightful. I appreciate that thought there, that thought there, Scott. And so and we'll talk about that afterwards down the road. If any of these professors, any of these attendees here are interested in connecting with you guys about doing some of those types of things, trying to get, talk about a little bit more about partnering up or doing these types of live events at their universities, or kind of helping them with creating or developing resources and stuff like that. I know that we'll again be sending out emails in case you guys are looking to get connected with Training the Street and talking a little bit more about that. But now I'm going to switch it over. I'm going to change it over here to Ross. And Ross, I know that you wanted to kind of walk through a little bit of a demo with some of the content. And again, this content is going to be available to you guys after this webinar. And so we'll be sending out an email to you guys in case, for anyone that is interested in trying out or playing around with this content. It's, again, completely free. You guys can play around with it. And I think that would be a really cool opportunity. So Ross, you want to go ahead and share your screen and kind of just walk through some of your content? And Ross here will be talking this through the content and how it kind of works with ExPrep. And so he'll kind of chat about both Training the Street's content and kind of highlight a couple things about what ExPrep's doing with it.
Yeah, thanks so much, Brandon. I think we use the ExPrep system a little differently than the way in which some people may actually envision it. We don't necessarily do exams in the traditional sense. We have some exams and other things that we can use, but we like to use it actually for a lot of assignments that we have people build, either in class or at the end of a training day with us, where it's really a simulation of kind of what they might do on the job. And as Scott kind of referenced this before, where we really see ourselves fitting in is being that kind of bridge between all of the great work they've done at the university level to, of course, then figuring out, okay, what is it that I'm actually going to be asked to do on the job? So you'll see here that the Excel grader from ExPrep fits right into our LMS system, and students come and access it directly through our LMS with one-click access, which is great. So it just launches into kind of a new window for them. And I've uploaded here a couple different assignments to show you a couple different ways in which we have and traditionally use the system. So we typically are looking at kind of a couple of different things. One, we're looking at the way in which students often are going through financials. They're pulling out key pieces of information. So think, for example, Tesla's last 10K. You're pulling out the last year's sales. You're looking at their gross margin. You're pulling out all these key points of data. And then, of course, not just analyzing those financials, but turning them into things like valuation. So one of the examples I uploaded up here is a public comps example of not Tesla, but a couple other companies here, being Tapestry and Tiffany. And I submitted them as kind of a student just to kind of show you the types of items that we traditionally are looking at rating within kind of one of our sample files. So this is an actual assignment we might give to students going through one of our banking or advisory programs, where for a company like Tiffany, which obviously before it was bought out by LVMH, we might have analyzed this business to come up with their valuation, right? And the public comps analysis that we traditionally do. And we're typically looking at here, and this is a real spreadsheet that we would actually here use. We're looking at a few kind of key different pieces of information from valuation, financials, all of that. A couple things that I think are important about the way in which we utilize the ExPrep system, though, is that we set up our spreadsheets to really mirror what the banks are going to use. And that includes things like color coding and formatting. So we have things very specifically formatted. Things like blue font are used for inputs or numbers that are typed in. Now, these might be linked to a system like Bloomberg or FactSet, but the idea is that it's something that's actual data input that could be updated either based on market trends or recent financials and such, versus black font color that is traditionally used for formulas or references. So when you're actually creating something, you're typing equals and going and referencing things. And so what's great is that we can kind of utilize templates that lay out with those color schemes which helps students understand where they're supposed to input numbers versus what they're supposed to create as formulas. And the ExPrep system also can look at things like that formatting too, which is really great for us. We then go and basically grade them typically on anything that we ask them to do within a spreadsheet like this. So I have kind of a couple examples that I uploaded here and submitted as basically a student where, for example, I made a mistake in my entry here of things like the options and the restricted stock units when trying to calculate the market cap. And it just shows here how the system captures not just where the error was made, but of course, a lot of other numbers that are then affected by that error and the way in which it might trickle down into other areas of their spreadsheet. But for students, the red highlighting and everything else gives them a sense of what exactly they missed. They can go back and say, hold on, why did I get that red? Let me go back and try to fix my file. And one key difference that we often do with these assignments is we allow students to resubmit them. So we actually allow typically here a variety of resubmissions so the students can look at their errors, download their file, and actually then re-upload it again to basically improve upon it. Often, as I said, different than the way in which people might traditionally just use as an exam where it's one and done. We like to use as a reinforcement technique for people to learn from their mistakes, go back, figure out why they got it wrong, and of course, resubmit. What's also really great for us is that on the system itself, as an instructor, I can go in and also see all the student submissions, and I can actually download their files too. So if somebody comes to me with a question, I can say, hey, let's take a look at your file and let me try to figure out why exactly you got that wrong. And then we can go through it together and look through it. We also often have TAs in our programs, which can also use this system in that same way to go through the files and help the students and sit with them to kind of figure out where exactly they missed something. But to Scott's point, because we often are doing these in large groups, our classes can vary in size from a handful of people to several hundred within a room. The fact is that they can also collaborate together, learning from each other, going through the materials, talking through it, and really getting that sense of kind of group learning as well as kind of collaboration. Another file that I also uploaded here, if I just go back to the assignments, is a actual 3-statement model. Now, this is a very simple, easy 3-statement model, what we call the WECO model for the world's easiest company. And it's really used by us to help bridge that gap from financial statements and reading a 10K to actually building a projection model for a company. And in that same way, we can go in and grade. And this one's a little bit less about actually here than doing any sort of inputs. We often give them kind of the base historical numbers. It's more about model building and saying, can you build the right formulas to project out things like revenues and a cost structure for this company? We make some basic assumptions about working capital, and we can have them then go through and calculate the cash flows along with then actually doing some amount of debt payment, maybe dividends to shareholders, whatever it needs to be. But it's really for students just about working in Excel and actually going through here and building out the right formulas to get to the right numbers. But what's kind of interesting about a model like this, and the reason I wanted to show this, is that it also works well to capture things like circular references for us. We often will sometimes build models that have circularities where you have a certain amount of debt that gives you interest, that changes your cash flow, affecting your ability to pay the debt, which affects the interest, and so on and so forth. And the ExPrep system handles that really well too. It allows us to actually allow for a margin of error where you can have the system calculate through various iterations and zero in on the right numbers and still grade the file. So it doesn't have to be an exact number. Some of these numbers can be down to scientific notation or very small numbers, and it'll still grade the files fine. But similar to what happened with the public comps, we can use it as a way for students to try to find out where their errors are and try to, of course, fix their model. So here is an example of a model I submitted where I made an error here at the very top where I messed up here my cost of goods sold formula. It immediately identified it at the top. And so as a student first opens a file, they see the error here at the very top, and they can immediately say, oh, hold on, why is that a problem? Let me go and figure out what I did wrong here. And of course, then fix these and resubmit them. And so we find the tool to be incredibly helpful for a wide variety of different types of models we build, from merger consequences analysis to leverage buyout models, these types of valuation models and DCFs, including things even like 3-statement models that have circularity in them.
And one thing I'm gonna add with this, Ross, is that like going back to like showing the view submissions, imagine in a large class, so it'll show the multiple submissions by each student. So Ross could have submitted 7 times. Now, obviously in this situation, there's only 2 submissions by Ross and Dave, but it so you can see the progressions, and our clients love this data because this is a way for them to tap into attitude and determination and grit, not just the aptitudes, because we will then often report to our clients, here's their highest score on their submissions on this assignment. And many of them are getting hundreds because you're able to get to the right answer if you're able to submit it multiple times. But then we can actually go into this and say, but this one started at a 74 and resubmitted 12 times to work the way up to 100 versus this student submitted once and got a 94 and then stopped. And that is very eye-opening to a lot of L&D professionals, because this then shows them like, student 1 might have started lower, but has that grit and determination and wherewithal and drive to get it to perfection, whereas student 2 started off strong, but then gave up. They're like, good enough. So again, that type of mentality is another part of the corporate world. They want people who have that strong attitude and determination, not just a strong aptitude technically coming right out of the gate.
That's a really great point. Yeah, they really like to collect a lot of different data points around people, not just their final score, but their first score, the average score, the number of submissions, the time to submit. All of that is helpful data to tell us different insights about the population.
And that's another great point about the time of data. Because this is a web-based, ExPrep portal's web-based, students can access it 24/7. So that means students can get instant feedback 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They don't have to wait till office hours. They don't have to wait till the TA being available or we're sending you an email waiting for response. So I told my students at UNC, I kicked off 3 weeks ago. It's like, before you ask the TA, you've got to first admit it, send it to ExPrep. And then what I recommend you do then is try to work with a classmate. And then look, we're always going to be here. We'll answer it for you, but we want to get them to be self-sufficient and get engagement on their own and take agency of their learning. And this is a great tool. We can do that to give them a little bit more agency and to grow with it.
Awesome. This is great. I mean, Rob, I don't get to I know we've worked together a handful of times, so it's kind of really cool to just I haven't seen your content in a while, and so it was just a good refresher of how much I don't know anything about finance. And so again, these files here will all be available to you guys, for you guys to be able to take a look at yourselves, play around with. If this is something that you guys are like, I really would love to kind of use these types of files for my own class and stuff like that. This would be really great for you guys, a really great resource for you guys. And I know, Scott, you again, we talked a little bit earlier about how Train the Street helps partner with universities, helps develop content. And so just to go back to that, if they're like, hey, I really love this content, this stuff, I believe that you guys will be sending out an email to everyone, just letting you know, if you guys are looking for more content to work together on more of this stuff, you can reach out to, you guys will have an email and everything like that. We will be providing, I believe, right? So if anyone is interested in like, hey, I'm really interested in partnering with Train the Street and developing content with them, or doing a live, having them do a live event at my university, they'll be sending out an email for you guys to be able to link up with them so that you guys can connect. But I know that we are here on our last about 10 minutes or so. I want to kind of leave first off, I want to thank Scott, Ross, for you guys joining us today at this webinar. I'm sure that it was, for me, I learned a ton as I'm even just listening to you guys. But I'm sure that everyone here got a little bit of something out of this. And so we wanted to open the floor up for questions, for any questions there. I know a couple questions already had come in, so kind of start there. But feel free for anyone who has just questions on anything that either Ross or Scott had mentioned, feel free to please just ask it in the chat, and we're happy to answer any of those types of questions. So the first question we got here, one person had asked, do you guys have a program that's focused on real estate analysis?
Ross, you put the answer in the chat, but you want to go ahead?
Yes. Yes, we do have a commercial real estate program. Actually, we developed in conjunction with one of our partners. It is a great program focused specifically on building, on understanding, obviously, key metrics used in measuring kind of real estate programs and returns, plus also, of course, building out Excel models focused on kind of those real estate developments.
And I will, to piggyback on that, we do have sector expertise in certain areas like software as a service, commercial real estate, oil and gas, and the like. I mean, we usually recommend, though, you think about the pyramid, hey, start with the key foundations, accounting, financial modeling, core, valuation topics, and then you can get more specialized into M&A and LBO, and then real estate, software as a service. I mean, so, obviously going to that level, you need to make sure that the pillars are there to hold people up. You don't want to just start with real estate modeling. You got to make sure you do financial modeling first and then get it into the real estate ilk. And one other thing, Brandon, to point out about, we also do have self-study digital products for our core topics we've been talking about here. There's a real estate self-studies course we have. There's a software service self-study we have. We even launched a little Copilot 45-minute course this week. But we do have digital assets that we can also use to partner with people to use in various settings.
Awesome, very cool. I might look into that Copilot course. That sounds interesting. So the next question we got was, I know when we were talking a little bit about COVID and the shift of how we've had to do a little bit more virtual, a little bit when because I know before you guys were doing a lot of live events, and now COVID where you had to do a lot more virtual events and things. And one question was, how has like remote work changed in regards to like the hiring process? Has it changed it at all? Do you have any insights on that?
The vast majority. Let me back up for a second. Short workshops, think 1 hour, 90 minutes, micro learning sessions. Most people embrace through a video conference format, Zoom being the typical preference for that, WebEx, Zoom, what have you. Longer programs, so think 2-3 day for interns as part of a 1 week for interns, or the graduate new hire training program. Most firms want to have them in person now so that they can collaborate, work together, do group work, network, and they can bring in other intangibles. That's a generalization. Short will be virtual, longer 1 day plus will be done in person. But there are a few exceptions, Ross. Like some clients, like they might have people all over Europe in, let's say, 12 different countries. And so they'll just say, we're going to do this out of London, but for everyone's going to be virtual because we don't want to pay the travel costs of bringing everyone in. So I think APAC and Europe probably in general does a little bit more virtual than the US, broadly speaking, but the vast majority of longer programs, 1 day or longer, are in person, and the short micro learning webinars are virtual.
Got it. And so next question that just came in. This one's a little spicy, y'all. So the question was, so how does Train the Street differ from other competitors? From like Wall Street Oasis, Wall Street Prep, M&I, CFI, those types of companies that are that kind of work in the similar same industries that you guys kind of work in. How do you guys kind of differ from all of those competitors?
There's a lot of different options. And so we are an education company, and we are truly partnering with, so if you ask especially our corporate clients and our academic clients where we've had multiple years with them, what separates apart, it's not what we teach, it's how we teach it that is truly special. There's a lot of people that can teach financial modeling, Excel, or valuation topics, but we're bringing engagement. We're coming in from an education lens. So I should also say, as part of my background, I was an M&A professional at Merrill Lynch here in New York, and then I got involved with their training program, and I taught high school for a couple of years in Washington, D.C. I was a econ major and education minor in school. So I started Train the Street because I enjoyed teaching, not because I was asked to do it, but because I love to do it. And that's what I really love to do now. And so we bring that engagement as having the world-class instructors who have the knowledge and package it all together so that our clients like, this was seamless. You did it well, you were reliable. And so some of our other competitors might be a self-study first company. They're now getting into live training. You can tell the difference in a corporate program that their self-study is really good, but the corporate delivery or the program delivery, our clients have told us it is Training Street, you're always here. You're always consistent. You're always at that level. And that's what we love about you. So we've definitely taken it from the approach of what are the clients and students' needs. We want to drive engagement. We want to drive learning outcomes. We want to make this the best experience possible, not just get it to the masses. We want to be value add for our training partners.
Yeah, which also speaks volumes too, because Scott, you're even though you are the CEO of Train the Street, you're also still a professor. So you're still teaching at UNC Chapel Hill, right? So that just shows your passion,
yeah.
right?
I
so
just
it shows
got
your
staffed.
passion.
I just got staffed for this summer, so and Ross is getting staffed too. We have one of our colleagues that's been working with us for a long time is basically the scheduler. So he's playing traffic cop in many ways. I mean, but no, I'm out there with it too, and I want to be in the classroom because it first of all, it's the passion that I love to do, but also it keeps me close to the content. It keeps me close to clients, and it's also advantageous when Ross is developing a new data analytics course. I have a much better perspective to give Ross feedback on how we could market this to someone else and a new client because I'm there in the classroom with it. So that's another way that we're separate. We are mostly instructors. We have a great support team. Don't get me wrong. We've got fantastic, e-learning team and our finance accounting team and marketing, and we have sales professionals and client relations. But our instructors are developing our content. We own it all. So it is all our own intellectual property. We don't outsource that. And then we also are delivering ourselves, either our full-time instructors or our associate consultants that, that we, work with to deliver the high quality learning outcomes.
Awesome.
I was just going to say, I think that's how we actually found you guys and hooked up with you, is that we were looking for tools to help enhance that in the classroom experience and give students the best outcomes from what they were doing in the classroom.
Yeah, we're looking for a gamification solution, and that's how we came across ExPrep. And so, that's where we connected with you.
Yeah, I remember knocking on Scott's door, and meeting Scott in person. That was awesome too. Yeah, we met up in New York City for the first time. I think it was like years ago, actually. At this point,
this is like our sixth or fifth, or at least fifth, if not sixth summer that we've been using ExPrep.
It's been a while. It's been a fun ride here. So anybody else have any other questions? I know we only have about 3 minutes left, so I want to make sure we squeeze any other questions. I know we have one of our current professors here, Katie, had asked a question about our multiple exam generator function, and so that feature is actually going to be available at the end of the year, and we actually have a way to do it now. So Katie, if you want to send me an email or send us an email, we can kind of show you a little bit about that. But that functionality is actually going to be available by the end of the year. This is what we're anticipating. But does anybody have any other questions while I still have Ross and Scott here to answer any of your dying questions that you guys have? All right. So if there are no other questions, and if I guess some people, I know there's a number of people here also that weren't able to make it. And so thanks, Ross, actually just put that in there. So I know there's a number of people who weren't able to make it and have asked for the recording. And so Ross has said that if you have any other questions, to reach out to them at info@trainingthestreet.com. Is that correct, Ross?
That's correct.
Cool. So if anybody has any other questions that you guys, especially for those that may have missed this webinar today, you guys can reach out to info@trainingthestreet.com. They can kind of they can kind of reach out that way. And again, there will be another email coming out from Training the Street and an ExPrep just about next steps. If you are somebody that's like, hey, I want to check out some more of Training the Street's content, or I want to do some type of live event or partner with them in some type of way, there will be an email for you guys to be able to link up with them. We'll also be in the email, again, be sharing some of the content that Ross had demoed earlier. And if you guys are interested in seeing how ExPrep can potentially automate some of your content. So if you have any assignments, any type of thing, whether you're teaching accounting, finance, Excel, you name it, and you're looking at ways to try to automate all the grading and reporting, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be sending you guys an email, and we'd love to link up with you on that way as well. But we appreciate everybody's time. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I know there's one chat message that says "Go Pack." Sounds like we had an NC State professor here, so he probably really enjoyed that feedback from you, Scott. We got thank you guys again so much for joining us. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Ross, for joining us at this webinar, and we will see you guys later. Thanks, y'all. Have a good one.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.